Welcome to the podcast, Raising Unstoppable Teens. I'm Dr. Kimberly Shear, teen breakthrough expert and founder of Academy for Independence. Today, I have a very special guest, Paulo von Simpson. And before we welcome him to the show, I would like to read his bio. Paulo is a junior at the University of Kansas studying anthropology. He was born in Brazil, but moved to America when he was very young. He enjoys learning about how things work and making or playing music. In fact, the music that is at the beginning of this podcast, as well as at the end, is his work. So I think he's very talented. He usually has times for those things when he's not busy with his fraternity. And he's been playing music for about 10 years. And he would love to make music his full-time job. In the near future, he plans on starting his own podcast called The Right Brain. And in fact, he plans on airing that very early in the year 2021. So let's welcome Paulo von Simpson to the show.
Thank you, Kimberly, for having me. Very glad to be here.
I'm excited that you're here. So we're going to jump into the questions. And my first question is, what were your teen years like for you?
My teen years they were really good. I remember in the beginning, they were pretty good. And then I started high school, and then they took a turn because a very tragic incident happened my freshman year, and that left a lot of people in my school, including myself, scarred and broken, honestly. And during that time, that's when I started therapy and searching for therapy, at least, and because one of my friends had passed away, so I worked through all that, and then eventually my teen years got better once I got a little bit older and figured myself out a little bit, and they're getting better every day now.
Nice.
Now that I'm in my 20s.
Yeah, but we always have our teenage part with us, right?
Oh yeah. No, my teenage years was when I discovered like my actual taste in music and like what I felt like, how I felt like I belonged in the world. It was pretty cool. Good times.
Yeah, it's amazing because music is pretty universal, obviously. And, do you feel like music is, with this tragedy, with your friend passing away, do you feel like music is what helped you? I mean, aside from therapy, but music helped you to kind of express your emotions or pain around that, or not? Just curious.
Yeah, some albums can do that with me. There's a couple that come to mind, but usually like when I didn't have anyone to talk to or anything like that to like distract myself and it was just me and my thoughts, it was, yeah, usually I'd put on a song and try to escape through there.
Okay. So I'm going to ask the next question about loneliness and periods where you have felt lonely. Where do you feel like that loneliness comes from for you?
Well, I've come to learn that there are at least two different kinds of loneliness. There's like physical loneliness when there's like no one around you, like right now for me. And then you can live in that space for a while probably. But then there's also like what I'm going to call, I don't know if there's a name for it, but what I'm going to call like mentally lonely, where you're around people, but they don't think the same way as you. They don't like the same things as you. They don't have the same interests as you, like that. So they're all interested in what they like. For instance, I'm not a very big sports guy, and a lot of other guys, especially in my fraternity sometimes, are just super invested in sports, and that's what they do in their free time.
Mm-hmm.
And that's cool. That's fine. I don't care. But sometimes for a while it can get pretty lonely in that sense,
Mm-hmm.
mentally, I guess. But yeah, when that happens, I just focus on me and play some music, make some music, listen to some music, something.
Okay, well, I have two questions that come to mind with me for that. One is that, in a sense, when I hear you describing the loneliness where you're not really sharing some of the same interests as some of your peers or roommates, um, is it kind of similar to not really feeling like you belong, or is that, and if not, how is what you're describing different from a sense of belonging or not feeling like you belong?
I'd say it's different because when I feel like I don't belong, I guess there's a feeling of like unwantedness there. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
And then like there's like a lingering thought of this like this person why is this person here? What is he doing? Like, you know? But um this type of loneliness I feel like is like it's not super hurtful when it's happening, like when you're experiencing it, but like over time, if it's common,
Mm-hmm.
then I feel like it would get it gets pretty heavy
Mm-hmm.
because that's just what you become used to, and that can lead to other things. But yeah,
Right. Okay. So just to clarify, because I want to make sure I'm understanding this, because I think you're making some really good points, um, is that feeling like you don't belong kind of carries with it, for lack of a better word, some negativity, or maybe feeling a little bit of rejection or being ostracized, so to speak,
yeah,
versus what you're describing is more, it's not where you're really feeling that kind of rejection. It's just like, like you were saying earlier, your fraternity brothers, they're really into sports. You're not, it doesn't bother you one way or the other. Like you're okay and you're confident in you being you, but there isn't that connection with that, like that you're still kind of doing your thing and not feeling connected with other people that maybe share those same interests. So that's where that loneliness comes from, which is different than feeling like you don't belong or like you've been rejected in some way.
yeah, because then when you're when you're doing what you're like and what you're interested in and talking about that, then and you have no one around who is interested in that, you have no one to share that with. So you discover something new. You you for instance, for me right now, I'm learning music production techniques, and for me, that's huge. And like I have somebody who I can talk to about that, but he's all the way in England,
Mm-hmm.
so it's not the time difference doesn't make it very convenient, and so for that, I don't get to talk to him about it very often.
Mm-hmm.
So with something like this, I don't really have someone who I can just go in depth and talk about what I've learned or what I'm into, you know? And
Mm-hmm.
so yeah, it gets a little lonely.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah. No, I think that was a really good distinction. So I want to thank you for that, because
Yeah,
it's
no problem.
not just automatically feeling like you don't belong. There is a different kind of loneliness, than that. Okay. And that was the other question I was going to ask you. Do you feel like when you do your music, it- for example, with your loneliness, is it in some way expressed through your music? Does it kind of work to where it inspires you to um, write or produce certain tracks, so to speak? I don't know what you would really say, but in other words, do you really, is that one way you process some of these lonely feelings is through your music, and that's where you have your outlet, or not?
Processing feelings not necessarily making music, but I do process by listening to music. If I listen to the right kind of music, I really love sad music, which is, I mean, it's whatever. I think it's really good. It can be very it's very moving. You know, like the thing I like about music, and I'm going to derail a little bit, but the thing I like about music is the fact that it can make you feel things through sounds, you know? And it's not like seeing a sunset and you're like, wow, that's a really pretty sunset. You know, you like, for me, I don't know what happens in my brain, but I hear the right combination of chords and notes and everything around. And if the artist is doing it right, then it just makes me feel so many things in good ways mostly. And then sometimes if it's bad feelings or sad songs, like I said, then either I feel less alone because I know the artist is doing that and has gone through that and has felt that and has made that. So I listen to music to kind of relate with that sometimes. It's not really methodical for me, but when I create music, my attention is all about creating, and I get nervous about making it sound right. So I don't really focus on, I don't think it stems from my loneliness like that.
Okay.
Yeah.
That was a very interesting answer. And I really liked what you said about really what you were saying is you connect through the music. And there is a sense that somebody's understanding you, the person who, you know, wrote the lyrics and the people that are playing the music. You can, there's a sense where you feel like they obviously get you, or they can relate. There's some kind of connection, so it helps a little bit to not feel so lonely. That's cool. Okay, let's see. Well, this is okay. So what do you think made you realize that you were indeed lonely?
I think for me, it was when I noticed that distinction for me. It wasn't that, well, first I started out all sad and I was just like, well, I don't know what's happening. And then I thought about it for a little bit, for a few days. And I noticed the distinction that there wasn't disinterest in the air for me. It wasn't people were disinterested in me. It was that they weren't interested in the same things that I am. You know, it wasn't me. It was my interests, but which is fine for me. That's fine. So that's how I realized I was lonely in that aspect. And then I just kind of felt more relieved in that sense and more at ease, I guess, that it was just that and not something else. I don't know.
That makes a lot of sense to me, because I think when we personalize it, or we think it is because of us, then, you know, it's almost our minds can be very negative and critical. And it's almost as though we're talking to ourselves as though something's wrong with us. So when you realize it isn't personal, it's just really, in a way, different preferences or different interests, and has nothing, and it isn't saying anything about your interests are wrong or bad or any of that. So when you don't personalize it, then there is a sense of relief, I would think, because then it's like, okay, I get it. You know, you like this type of music, I like this type of music. It's just the way it is, and you know, nothing, it means nothing more than that. So at what age did you realize this?
When I was the ripe young age of 18 or 19, probably.
And you're 20 now?
Yep.
Okay. Well, that's huge, though, I will say, because it's when we personalize things, we can really get trapped into mental, you know, spiraling down. So to recognize that is pretty sophisticated. So.
Yeah, and I think it was when I was like physically alone that I like was like, okay, well, it's me and myself. You know, I don't really have my parents to go and And I mean, I can call them anytime, but I didn't have them in the space to go to and for that sort of thing. So I kind of had to work that out myself. And yeah, so that's why it was probably until I was 18 or 19 that I didn't notice that's part of what was up.
It's awesome though.
Yeah.
Really. I mean, there's many adults that haven't yet been able to break free from personalizing or making a story out of something being wrong with them instead of just kind of being a little more objective about it. So
no, yeah, loneliness is very common in the past couple of generations, or probably this generation, the last one, because of the amount of screens that have grown in our life and the amount of time we spend on them.
Mm-hmm.
We're focused on that instead of the people around us, and so it can get we're more connected now than ever. You know, we can talk to anybody at any time. We're doing this remotely right now, and you're 2 time zones behind for me, you know, so it's great in that aspect, but it has also, I think, caused a sort of halo effect where we're just absorbed in what we're doing, which is fine. I mean, this is how society has moved, but it's also an effect of that has become an increase of loneliness because we're not interacting, I feel like, with each other as much, which is pretty relevant nowadays.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And I think doing so much online too, we're not getting that physical touch either.
Exactly.
You know, the hug or whatever, which does, you know, release.
Because we got here, we put ourselves on the map by working together with each other and by having that humanity, I guess, you know?
Mm-hmm. Yes. So speaking of screen time and, you know, technology and all of that, that brings me to my next question about COVID and remote learning and how are you faring with all of that? What are, you know, some positives and maybe some things that are still need to be worked through? I'm just curious to your thoughts on that, especially you being at the university.
Yeah, well, luckily for me, when things are going normal, I have 1 day a week where I can go out and when I have to go to class, and that's just one class, fortunately. But when I'm at home doing the online classes, it was tough. School was already tough for me growing up, but the online aspect does not make it any easier because you don't have that transition time of, okay, I'm walking to this class, I'm thinking about what's going to happen in this class, you know. For me, it's just I push a couple buttons and then I'm in class, you know. So I have to kind of, it's a really harsh transition, I guess, you know. And so it can be tough sometimes to get what I need to get done that day.
Mm-hmm.
But I just have to push through, and luckily my new ADHD meds are helping me with that.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think that's important that with the medication, I do want to make a note of that because it can make some, I mean, definitely improve the lives of you know, for people for sure. And just on a side note for that, I'm going to veer off as well, is that it's really important with the medication too, that sometimes I think with you can be on a medication and maybe it doesn't work or the side effects are um, a lot to bear. For example, gaining weight or maybe you still can't sleep at night or whatever. And I just want to say to our listeners that, you know, if that happens, still go back and talk to, you know, the psychiatrist or, you know, the doctor if they're, you know, because there are other meds out there that they can, you know, they're so skilled at different dosages and that kind of thing. So don't give up if a medication doesn't seem to work, and also don't feel like you have to struggle through some of these things like that's the only way, because sometimes we get stuck in that. like, well, it's a side effect. So, but I'd rather gain weight than feel depressed, let's say. There are medications out there, that where maybe that isn't such a side effect for you. So that's why it's important to just always check in.
Yeah.
But, okay. So with I would think too, like having everything online, or most other than the one class, like, do you miss kind of I liked what you said too about like the transition, like you have a mental transition as well. Just,
Yeah,
going.
because that's for everybody. That's for the
Right.
people commuting to work. That commute time, it's very important. And so,
Mhm.
I mean, if we're stuck at home, we don't have that. So we have to either make our own, or
Right.
I don't know.
Yeah. And I think too, for me, I miss the buzz and the energy of being around other people.
Oh yeah,
Is
yeah. I
different.
do miss seeing the campus full
Mhm.
during those times where people are walking in and out of class, and
Right.
seeing everybody walk down Jayhawk Boulevard. And
Hmm. Yeah. Yeah. I'm thinking though that, when you mentioned persevering through it, that one positive thing that I think will come from this is that you will be more resilient, because you have to be to get through this. I think a lot of our youth, that's going to be part of, they're going to be more resilient, I think, than maybe some other generations, because
oh yeah,
with
especially with everything else that's going on besides a pandemic.
exactly. Yeah. Yeah. And even the pandemic, it was just so abrupt, and everyone was kind of flung into this crisis mode, and now there's still a lot of uncertainty and change. And so we're constantly kind of and there's no predictability, or very little. So um, you have to kind of persevere and figure out what works for you. Like what you were just saying, you don't have that transition, for example, in the commute time or going from class to class. So you need to kind of create it in your home space. Um, so, and that's something, I don't know. I never really thought of it that way. So I think that's a really good point. And I think it's a really good tip for parents of
Yeah,
teenagers.
that's true.
Yeah. Okay. Let's see. Well, this is a good question. Do you think you're going to feel more lonely since you're online? I mean, I know you have the one class, but since school's online, or do you have tips for, to not feel so lonely even though you're in your space?
Yeah. I don't think I'll be any more lonely,
Mhm.
um, because I'm not as physically lonely now because I have two roommates,
Okay.
so that's nicer.
Hmm.
So I have like more stuff to talk about with them, and more, we're all in the same-ish generation, so um, there's that, which is nice.
Hmm.
But and I'm already in a major that is not very common.
Hmm.
Nobody's really out here studying anthropology like that. The department barely has enough money.
Hmm.
So I don't have anyone to talk about with that and the music.
Hmm.
So for me, I don't think I will be getting any more lonely, but I will have to definitely deal with with having the loneliness that I already have and have found, I guess. Um, but for teens who are going through that, or realize that it is what they're going through, I say just focus on what you're doing, what you like, and forget everything else, because what you like is what matters.
Hmm.
And if you can do that and be happy, and if that still makes you happy, then you're probably not alone.
Nice. Do you feel that that was really good suggestion, by the way? So do you feel like by following what you like and what makes you happy, do you feel like that's going to open up doors to eventually, maybe not immediately, but over a period of time, open doors where you're meeting other people in that space? Like for you, one example would be music. Are you meeting other people? I mean, it's hard because COVID, so you can't really.
Yeah, I can't really meet them per se,
Mm-hmm.
but I am getting to know through the internet some people who are into that. I'm trying to get my name out there, trying to, that's kind of all music is right now for people starting, is just connections.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm trying to build those, and I feel like I'm getting a little bit better, but yeah, it is tougher now since can't have that like human interaction
Mm-hmm.
face to face, because that is important for the creative process
Mm-hmm.
for some people.
Right, right. And I'm thinking too, I'm just envisioning like being in a music class, or if you're a painter and taking a painting class, even if it was online,
Yeah,
those are kind of your people. It doesn't mean you're going to like everyone in there. There's personality differences, but you obviously
and
are sharing the same interests.
yeah, and especially for those who like, for even like any class, like if it's music, painting, math, who knows? There's always now going to be 3 or 4 extra steps to ask for help. You have to open up the email, you have to type the email, you have to send the email. Before it was just, if you're in the room with the professor or whatever, you just ask the question. That was just like half a step. Now there's at least like 4 or 5. So a lot of people, I feel like, will be deterred
Mm-hmm.
from asking for help because they'll either be embarrassed because they're in their own space and the professor's all the way over there and the time is somehow more valuable,
Mm-hmm.
or they're not gonna know how to phrase it, or it's just it's not gonna come to them as easily maybe.
Mm-hmm. And I think too, when we're writing the emails, that,
Yeah.
go ahead.
Yeah, I was just gonna say with the like what you said about the emails, it's a lot less personal, so you can't really get what you're trying to say out
Mm-hmm.
because I don't because you're typing it and that's it. It's set in stone. But I mean, it's nice in that sense because you can edit it before you send it. But once it's sent, that's all you got. You know.
That's true. But I was also going to say sometimes the way we want to convey it, you're not in an email, you don't see body language, there's no inflection, all of that. So we miss all of that. We only really see the words,
Yeah, it's
and
very
communication.
unpersonal.
Yeah, the words are only 7% of
Yeah.
communication actually.
Wow.
So it's a big gap. And I also loved what you said about the teacher in somehow there's not only being deterred but also a distance. And I want to say, for example, if you're in class and you're having, let's say you went through a major breakup, with your girlfriend or boyfriend, and you're feeling really sad, maybe you're thinking about ending your life. I mean, sometimes thoughts can go through your mind like that. Being at school, you still may not confide in a teacher or go to the school counselor, but I think a student might be more likely, especially if it's a teacher they like and they trust, maybe they might open up to the teacher and just talk about their feelings. And even though in the online world, the teachers technically are still there to ask questions, and I'm sure still has office hours and you can still write an email. Sometimes, you're in the moment and that's when you want to engage with the teacher, or, wait after class and say something. And you don't necessarily feel it's comfortable, and maybe even, yeah, comfortable, like you have that opportunity online with the teacher. So I also think we're missing that aspect, that interaction,
Oh
and
yeah, I
just
agree.
Yeah. And that's scary to me.
It is. Yeah, it is, because a lot of these kids now are going to have to deal with their problems alone, or go through all the steps of just writing the emails, or
Mm-hmm.
reaching out through that way. But that's also scary because they didn't have that interaction with the teacher. They know the teacher barely knows. The teacher only knows from here up.
Right.
That's it, and it's 7% of
Mm-hmm.
communication.
Yeah. Yeah. So very, very good points you're bringing up, Paulo. Okay. So you have the podcast, The Right Brain, that's going to be coming out in 2021.
If all goes well, yeah.
Yes. So I'm so excited for you. And I know that The Right Brain, all about creativity. So this could be musicians that you're interviewing. It could be, um, visual artists. It could be just any kind of creation. I think earlier when we were not recording, you had mentioned something about even cake decorators. I mean, you just
Yeah.
want a platform for people that you would like to interview that are using their creativity and their talents with that.
Yeah,
So,
I want to create a space where, if a person has an idea and has gone through the effort to manifest that idea,
mhm,
um, then I want to know how they did that, what their thought process was, what the space around them was, all of that.
that's awesome. So, if somebody wanted to be considered to be a guest on your podcast, The Right Brain, how might our listeners go about doing that?
They can email me at therightbraincastpod@gmail.com.
Okay,
And then, yeah, I'll consider it. I'll do some research, and we'll see what happens.
awesome. And listeners, I will also have that in the show notes so that if you didn't get it during the recording, just it'll be in the show notes for you to refer to. So, well, Paulo, thank you so much for taking time out of your school and classes and all of that, your online remote learning, to be here and to share your insights and perspective. It's really valuable. So I want to thank you for that.
Thank you for having
And
me on here. Thank you for the
yeah,
opportunity.
you're welcome. So that concludes our show. Here's to unstoppable teams, unstoppable dreams.